The next time somebody begins to lecture you about the evils of white people in South Africa, you might want to tell them the story about the 44-year-old mother who was ambushed in her home and murdered. According to news reports we're reading dailymail.co.uk, she was found naked by her son laying by a bed in her little daughter's bedroom. The report says that she was naked and her eyes had been gouged out. The story goes on to say that a 25-year-old black male has been arrested for the crime. Apparently, the motive was robbery. It appears that it was a burglary. Well, let's put it in this context. If this story were reversed, that is, if the races were reversed, if it was a black woman attacked by a white man in South Africa, she had been beaten to death, her eyes gouged out, found naked by her son, do you think the media would be talking about this nonstop? Well, of course they would. They would say, see here, evidence of white racism in South Africa. But because it was black on white, the media, by and large, is silent about it. Now, the Daily Mail picked up on it, but I haven't heard anything about this story from any major cable network company. In fact, this is the only, I'm sure there are other reports, but this is the only major news outlet I've seen that's covering the story. Well, let's go over to the website and take a look at what they say. Again, this is dailymail.com, which is based in United Kingdom. And you can see the headline. I'm going to scroll down some so you can get a better look. It says, South African mother found naked with her eyes gouged out after being stabbed 21 times. As police arrest a man who is 25 years old on suspicion of a gruesome murder. How they found this guy, I have no idea. And the story is not that long, but one thing that is missing is there's no, as far as I can tell, there's no allusion or reference, I should say, to racism. The fact that it's black on white seems to be coincidental. Now, you need to keep in mind that one of the most dangerous occupations in the world is being a farmer in South Africa. The reason being because they're basically sitting ducks, unable to effectively defend themselves. Anytime a black thug wants to steal something, they just basically walk in and steal it, but almost always it's accompanied by a severe act of violence, which typically results in the murder of the victims. Okay, let me suggest you do this. I'm not going to put it on the screen because it's just too grotesque, but sometimes Google the search term South Africa farm murders and then click on the images tab. South African farm murders, images. That, my friend, is the real racial slaughter. That gives you some little, the images you will see will give you some idea of what white people had to endure in Haiti in 1804 when they were massacred. However, this is real time. This isn't history. This is happening right here and right now. The story goes on and it says, and you can see it on the screen, Tanya Weers was murdered at her home in, I'm not sure how to pronounce this, Polokwane, northern South Africa. This is Pretoria, and that's when I looked it up earlier. It's located up here in the northeast corner. The story says this 44-year-old mother of three's naked body was found by her teenage son. Police arrested 25-year-old suspect Franz Mela in connection with the murder. Local police described it as the most gruesome murder they have ever seen. If you want to see gruesome murders just like this one, then do what I just suggested earlier. Google South African farm murders and click on images. Police say they haven't seen anything this gruesome. Well, you do that and you will see something this gruesome. Quite frankly, I don't believe the police. Okay, this is a little more detail. A South African woman who was ambushed in her own home was stabbed 21 times before having her eyes gouged out before her naked body was discovered by her son. who arrived home from school. Tanya Weirs, 44, was discovered by her son, Rolf, laying in her daughter's bedroom after suffering the gruesome attack. What kind of a jerk would do something like this? And what kind of disgusting media? How brainwashed do people have to be not to cover this? The brutal slaying has been described by police as the worst they'd ever witnessed. We saw that mentioned before. The mother of three was attacked at her home, which is about 150 miles north of Pretoria. Some of this is redundant. Police arrested Frans Malia. A family friend told Bosveld Review that she had gone into the house after Mrs. Weir's husband, Rolf Sr., said he had received a disturbing call from her son, who was talking incoherently. Okay, now I want you to imagine this image. This young man, teenager, doesn't say how old he is, gets home from school, and he finds his mother naked, stabbed 21 times, and her eyes gouged out, laying dead on the floor, covered by a blanket. The only thing he knows to do is call a family friend. He's talking incoherently, and the friend contacts the woman's husband. He says, I went into the house thinking she might have died from a heart attack, and what I saw was like something out of a horror movie. She was lying in her youngest daughter's room, covered by a blanket beside her bed. It was clear there'd been a struggle, as the bed was not where it used to be. Tanya's clothing was lying in front of the closet in her husband's room. The closet doors were still open, and it's evident somebody had searched through. So she was attacked, apparently during a home invasion. There's a photo of the victim. This is apparently the location of the home. There's the site of the murder. This apparently is where her son found her laying, and this is the blanket that they say was covering her, I guess. Once again, they've already written this thing 3 times, but the report says this is the most gruesome thing I've ever seen. I can't think that there will ever be anything worse. It's evident that the victim put up a fight for her life. This was so much blood, and her defensive wounds tell their own horrifying story. 21 times she was stabbed. Goes on to say the suspect is in custody. Police discovered Miss Weirs suffered extensive defense wounds to her arms and hands before she succumbed to the attack. So she was trying to defend herself, and this guy just kept wailing on her with a knife. Well, that's why we do what we do. Because the mainstream, what I call the mainstream Marxist media, won't cover stories like this. So we talk about it. Well, why doesn't the conservative media talk about this? Well, they're intimidated. They're bullied. They're cajoled into silence. If you talk about black on white violence, which is epidemic, not just in South Africa, but around the world, it's just epidemic. Black on white violence. Thousands of people being killed, and nobody's talking about it. What they will talk about is, they'll talk about lynch mobs back in the 19th century, but they won't mention that the victims, 1/3 of them were white, and nearly all of them weren't randomly chosen, but they were lynched because they were extremely violent criminals. Guys like this is the type of person that was lynched during the lynching era. Now, they'll talk about that endlessly. They'll talk about slavery in the United States. They will talk about that endlessly. They don't tell you that slavery in the United States compared to slavery in sub-Saharan Africa, well, to be taken from sub-Saharan Africa to North America as a slave was like winning the lottery. But they'll talk about that endlessly, but they'll give you the roots narrative, not the true historical narrative. They will tell you how that, they'll tell you the lie that white South Africans went to South Africa and butchered everybody and took their land and dispossessed them, stealing their minerals and their, not only their minerals, but their property. They just stole everything, their commodities. Of course, that's a lie. What white people did, the Dutch, when they went to South Africa, is they introduced people who had been stuck in a Paleolithic existence for 50,000 years, introduced them for the first time to Western technology, enhanced their lives immensely. And this is the payback. But the point of all that is the conservative media, even the conservative media, is afraid to talk about it. And as I like to say often, here's the problem with that. When honest people allow themselves to be bullied into silence, then who's talking? The only people talking are the liars. And that's the reason we have such a distorted perception of reality throughout the Western world. Is because the only people who are talking are people who have a very distorted view of the world. Distorted worldview. A lot of them know better. They're just flat out lying to us. And so that becomes our worldview. We think that white people in South Africa really truly were racist. They were not. They introduced those people to advanced technologies that they never knew before, enhanced their lives immensely. And the payback is they get stabbed to death and demonized. If you like this video, share it on social media. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up. If you've not yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, we do this all day long. You don't want to miss any of it, so the thing to do is just subscribe to our YouTube channel and make sure that you don't, in fact, miss anything. Also, leave a comment in the comment section below. What do you think about this? Do you think it's time that maybe the white people in South Africa need a country of their own so they can at least live in peace? They're not the bad people the media makes them out to be. They absolutely, positively are not.
How to subscribe? Click subscribe. Click the bell. Check the box. Save.